so pissed. Okay, open my mouth. I don't need to be so drunk.
Tom, come, will you go to a play?
No.
Why?
Because there is so many words and so little wit. As the words tire me more than the wit delights me, and most commonly there is only one good part of humor. And all the rest are forced into interline for that part, or humor. Likewise, not above one or two good actors, the rest are as ill actors as the parts they act. Besides, their best or principal part of humor is so reedious that I hate at last what I liked at first. For many times a part is good to the third act, but continue to the fifth is stark not.
The truth is that in some plays the poets run so long in one humor as he runs himself out of breath.
Oh, not only the poet, but the humor he writes of seems to be as broken-winded.
I've heard of a broken-winded horse, but never of a broken-winded poet, nor a broken-winded play before.
I wonder why poets will bind themselves so as to make every humor they write or present to run quiet through their play.
Bind, say you? They'd rather give themselves line and liberty. Nay, they are so far from binding that they stretch their line of humor into pieces.
Let me tell you that if any man should write a play wherein he should present end humor in one act and should not continue it to the end, although it must be stretched, as you say, to make it hold out, he would be condemned, and not only accounted an ill poet, but no poet. For it would be accounted as ill as wanting a rhyme in a copy of verses, or a word too much or too short in a number, for which a poet is condemned. And for every word that is not spelled right, he is damned forever.
Nay, he is only damned if he doth not write strictly to the orthography.
Oh, scholars only damn poets and writers for orthography. But for the others, they are damned by the generality. That is, not only all readers, but all or that but hearers of the works.
The generality, for the most part, is not foolishly strict or rigid as particulars are.
Yes, Faith, they are led by one bellwether, like a company of silly sheep.
Well, if I were to write a play, I would write the length of the humor according to the strength of the humor and breadth of my wit. I'd let them judge me and condemn me as they would. But though some of the past and present ages may be erroneously or maliciously foolish in such cases, yet the future ages may be more wise and better natured as to applaud what others have condemned. But prithee, come, let us go.
No, I will not go for the reasons before mentioned, which is they tire me with their empty words, dull speeches, long parts, tedious acts, ill actors. And the truth is, there's not enough variety in the old plays to please me.
There is variety of that which is bad, as you divided it. But it seems as though you love youth and variety in plays as you do in mistresses.
Oh, plays delight amorous men as much as a mistress doth.
Nay, they more. For a man and his mistress is soon out of breath in their discourse, and they know not what to say. And when they are at a nonplus, they would be glad to be quit of each other, yet are ashamed to part so soon, and weary to stay with each other long. But a play entertains them with love, and requires not their answers, nor forces their brains, nor pumps their wits.
Oh.
For play doth rather fill them than empty them.
Faith, most plays doth rather fill their spectators with wind than with substance, with noise and with news.
This play that I would have you go to is a new play.
What is there news in this play? That is there new wits, new scenes, or new fancies, and not taken out of old stories or old plays? Really translated.
No, not that, but this play was writ by a lady, whom on my conscience hath neither language nor learning, but what is native and natural.
A woman writes a play out upon it, for it cannot be good. Besides, you say she is a lady, which is the likelier to make a play worse. A woman and a lady write a play. Bye-bye.
Why may not a lady write a good play?
No, for a woman's wit is too weak or too conceived to write a play.
But a woman hath wit, or can write a good play. What will you say then?
Why, I would say no one would believe it for it to be good. They will think she did not write it, or at least say she did not. Besides, the very being a woman condemns it, for it never so excellent in care. For men will not allow women to have wit, or we men to have reason. Besides, if we allow women wit, we shall lose our preeminency.
If you will not go, Tom, farewell, for I will go see this play, let it be good or bad.
No, stay up. I will go with thee, for I am contented to cast away the time for the sake of sex. Although I have no say in the office's wit.
Many a reprobate hath been converted and brought to repentance by hearing a good sermon. And who knows, But by seeing this play, you may be converted from your erroneous opinion and brought to co-confess that a lady may have wit.
Do you think royal blood means you're a king? Do you think feeling in control means the end of suffering? Do you think holding gold means you're glittering? Let us suppose that no, it don't mean anything. Well, here we are with a question, a plea. What is the way to play a game with rules so crazy? If you never were taught the way it should be, why would you wanna leave a party when the drugs are all free?
To you, I dedicate this work of grace, this frame of glory which I have erected. For your fair mind, I hold the fittest place, where virtue should be settled and protected. If highest thoughts true honor do embrace, and holy wisdom is of them respected, then in this mirror let your fair eyes look, to view your virtues in this blessed book. Blessed by our Savior's merits, and not my skill, which I acknowledge to be very small. Yet, if the least part of his blessed will I have performed, I count I have done all. One spark of grace sufficient is to fill our lamps with oil, ready when he doth call, to enter with the bridegroom to the feast, where he that is greatest may be least. Greatness is no sure frame to build upon. No worldly treasure can assure that place. God makes both even, the cottage with the throne. All worldly honors there are counted base. Those he holds dear and reckoneth as his own, whose virtuous deeds by his special grace have gained his love, his kingdom, and his crown, whom in the book of life he hath set down. Titles of honor which the world bestows, to none but to the virtuous belong, as beauteous bowers where true worth should repose, and where his dwelling should be built most strong. But when they are bestowed upon her foes, poor virtue's friends endure the greatest wrong, for they must suffer all indignity, until in heaven they better graced be. What difference was there when the world began? Was it not virtue that distinguished all? All sprang but from one woman and one man. Then how doth gentry come to rise and fall? Or who is he that very rightly can distinguish of his birth, or tell at all in what mean state his ancestors have been, before someone of worth did honor win? It is fair virtue gets immortal fame, 'tis that doth all love and duty bind. If he that much enjoys doth little good, we may assume he comes not of that blood. Nor is he fit for honor or command, if base affections overrule his mind. or that self-will doth carry such a hand as worldly pleasures have the power to blind, so that he cannot see nor understand how to discharge that place to him assigned. God's stewards must for all the poor provide, if in God's house they purpose to abide.
Have they primed you? Have you got your lesson by heart at last?
I'm not sure I understand you. However unpropitious your mood may be, I shall discharge my errand. I am here to offer you what I believe is called amends.
So you've come to realize then, after all these years, that you owe me something.
I'm not here to deny it.
Pay then. Pay.
I have promised that. If you exact it, I will.
Ah, if I insist you'll make it all good, then don't you know you must pay me in kind?
What do you mean?
Give me back what you took from me. My old faith, give me that.
Oh,
Or give me back mere kindness, even tolerance. Give me back the power to think fairly of my brothers, not as mockers or thieves.
I have not mocked you, and I have asked you what
Something
it is
you
exactly.
knew I should refuse. Or did you dare be afraid I wouldn't?
I suppose if we set our teeth, we could come to some...
I couldn't, not even if I set my teeth. And you wouldn't dream of asking me if you thought there was the smallest chance.
I could do no more than offer you such reparations as is in my power. If you don't accept that,
Accept it! No. Go away and live in debt. Pay and pay and pay and find yourself still in debt for a thing you'll never be able to give me back. And when you come to die, say to yourself, I paid all creditors but one.
I grow rather tired, of all of this talk of debt. If I hear you persist in it, I shall have no choice.
What?
No, I'll keep to my resolution.
What resolution?
I came here under considerable pressure to speak of the future, not to reopen the past.
The future and the past are one.
You talk of that old madness as if it was mine alone. It is the woman's way.
I know. It's not fair. Men suffer as well as we by the woman's starting wrong. If he tells her, "Don't go down into hell she goes."
Make no mistake. Not the woman alone. They go down together.
Yes, they go down together, but the man comes up alone. As a rule, it's more convenient so for him and for the other woman.
My conscience is clear. I know, and so do you, that most men in my position wouldn't have troubled themselves. I gave myself endless trouble.
So you've gone about all these years feeling as if you discharged every obligation.
Not only that, I stood by you with a fidelity that was nothing short of quixotic. Now, if women-like, you must recall the past. I insist on you recalling it correctly.
You think I don't recall it correctly?
Not when you make other people believe that I deserted you. It's a curious enough charge when we stop to consider that.
Well, when we do, for 5 minutes out of 10 years, when we do stop to consider, we realize...
remember it was you who did the deserting. Since you had to rake the story up, you might have had the fairness to tell the facts.
You think the facts would have excused you?
No doubt you've forgotten them. Since Lady John tells me you wouldn't remember my existence once a year if the newspapers didn't mention that.
You minded that!
I minded your giving false impressions. Do you deny that you returned my letters unopened?
No.
Do you deny that you refused to see me and that when I persisted, you vanished?
I don't deny any of those things.
Why, I had no trace of you for years.
I suppose not.
Very well then. What could I do?
Nothing. It was too late to do anything.
It wasn't too late. You knew since you read the papers that my father died that same year. There was no longer any barrier between us.
Oh yes, there was a barrier.
Of your own making then.
I had my guilty share in it, but the barrier was your invention.
It was no invention. If you'd ever known my father, remember that he...
The echoes! How often you used to say, if I only knew your father! But you said yourself you called the greatest barrier by another name.
What name?
The child that was to come.
That was before my father died, when I still hoped to get his consent.
How the thought of that all-powerful personage used to terrorize me. What chance had a little unborn child against the last of the great feudal lords, as you called him?
You know that child would have stood between you and me.
I know that child did stand between you.
It did stand.
Happy mothers teach their children. Mine had to teach me.
But you talk
Teach
as if...
me that a woman may do a thing for love's sake that shall kill love.
Well, you certainly made it plain that you had no love left for me.
I had need of it all for the child.
You mean then after all that it lived?
No. I mean that it was sacrificed. But it showed me that no barrier is so impassable as the one a little child can raise.
Was that why?
Day and night there it was. Between my thought of you and me, when I was most unhappy, I would wake thinking I heard it cry. It was my own crying I heard, but I seemed to have it in my arms. I suppose I was mad. I used to lie there awake in that lonely farmhouse pretending to hush it. It was so I hushed myself.
I never knew that's you were going.
I didn't blame you. You couldn't risk being with me.
You agreed that for both of our sakes it was the
Yes,
best.
you had to be very circumspect. You were so well known. Your autocratic father, your brilliant political future.
To be fair, our future, as I saw it then.
Yes. It all hung on concealment. Must have looked quite simple to you then. You didn't know that the ghost of a child that had never seen the light, the frail thing you meant to sweep aside and forget, have swept aside and forgotten, you didn't know it was strong enough to push you out of my life. It can do more. It can push that girl out. It can do more still.
Are you threatening me?
No, I'm preparing you.
For what?
For the work that must be done. Either with your help or that girl's. One of two things. Either her life and all she has given to this new service, or a ransom if I give her up to you.
Oh, I see. A price. Well,
Even if I could trust you to pay. No. It would be a poor bargain to give her up for anything you could do.
Despite your assumption, she may not be your tool.
You are horribly afraid she is. But you're wrong. Don't think it's merely I that have got a hold of Jean Dunbar.
Yeah, who else?
The new spirit that's abroad. How else should that inexperienced girl have felt the new loyalty and responded as she did?
New, indeed, however, little loyal.
Loyal above all. But no newer than electricity was when it first lit up the world. It had been there since the world began waiting to do away with the dark. So has the thing you're fighting.
The thing I'm fighting is nothing more than one person's hold on a highly sensitive imagination. Now, I consented to this interview in the hopes that well, it only remains for me to show her your true motive is revenge.
Once say that to her, and you are lost. I know what it is that men fear. It even seems as if it must be through fear that your enlightenment will come. And that is why I see a value in Jean Dunbarton far beyond her fortune. More so than any girl I know. If I keep her from you, that gentle and flexible creature could rouse in men the old half-superstitious fear that women...
Fear? I believe you are mad.
Mad. Unsexed. These are the words today. In the Middle Ages, men cried witch and burnt her, the woman who served no man's better board.
You would have that poor child believe she would be better
speaks
off.
for herself. We've come to a place where we find there's a value in women, apart from the value men see in them. You teach us not to look to you for some of the things we need most. If women must be freed by women, we have need of such as... Who knows? She may be the new Joan of Arc.
That she should be the sacrifice.
You have taught us to look very calmly on the sacrifice of women. Men tell us in every tongue it's a necessary evil. One girl's happiness against a thing nobler than happiness for thousands. Who could hesitate? Not Jean.
Good God. Can't you see that this crazed campaign that you'd start her on, even if it's to be successful, it can only be so through the help of men? What excuse shall you make your own soul for not going straight to the goal?
You think we wouldn't be glad to go straight to the goal?
I do. I see you'd much rather punish me and see that girl revel in a morbid self-sacrifice.
You say I want to punish you, only because, like most men, you won't take the trouble to understand what we do want, or how determined we are to have. You can't kill this new spirit among women. And you couldn't make a greater mistake than to think it finds a home only in the exceptional or the unhappy. Oh, it's so strange, Jeffrey, to see a man like you, as much deluded as the Hyde Park loafers who say to Ernestine Blunt, "Who's hurt your feelings?" Why not realize that this is a thing that goes deeper than personal experience? And yet, if you take only the narrowest personal view on the matter, a good deal depends on what you and I agree upon in the next 5 minutes.
You recommend my realizing the larger issues. But in your ambition to attach that girl to the chariot wheels of progress, you quite ignore the fact that there are people fitter for such work, the very men you look to enlist in the end, ready and waiting to give the thing a chance.
Men are ready. What men?
Women have themselves to blame. That the question has grown so sensitive that responsible people shrink for the moment from being implicated in it.
We have seen the shrinking.
You know, without quoting anybody else, I might point out that the new antagonism seems to have blinded you to the fact that I, for one, am not an opponent.
The phrase has a familiar ring. We've heard it from 420 others.
I spoke, if I may say so, of someone who would count. Someone who could carry his party with him or risk a seat in the cabinet.
Did you mean that you're ready to do that?
An hour ago, I was.
An hour ago.
Exactly. You don't understand, men. They can be led, they can't be driven. 10 minutes before you walked into this room, I was ready to say I would throw in my political lot with this reform.
And now?
Now, you block my way with an attempt at coercion. By forcing my hand, you give my adherents an air of bargain driving for a personal end. Exactly the same mistake of the ignorant agitators of your union, as you call them. You have much to learn. This movement will go forward, not because of the agitation, but in spite of it. There are men in Parliament who would have been actively serving the reform today, as so actively as a vast constitutional
And they haven't done it
change,
because
it would put a premium on breaches of decent behavior. Look here.
This is very good. I see only one objection.
Objection?
You haven't sent it.
And that is your fault.
When did you write this?
Before I came into the room, when I was...
It must have pleased Jean. That message. I could drive a hard and fast bargain with you, but I think I won't. If both love and ambition urge you on, then perhaps, after all, life hasn't been quite fair to you. You fall out of one ardent woman's dreams into another's.
Might as well tell me, do you mean?
To keep you and her apart?
What can I do for you? The real you. Not the reformer or the would-be politician. For the woman I so unwillingly hurt. You might not believe me, but now that I understand, there is almost nothing I wouldn't do to right that old wrong.
There's nothing to be done. You can never give me back my child.
That ghost give you no rest.
Yes. Oh, yes. I see life is nobler than I knew. There's work to do.
Why should you think that it's only you these past 10 years have taught something to? Why not give even a man credit for a willingness to learn something of life and for being sorry, profoundly sorry for all the pain his instruction has cost others? You seem to think that I've taken this all quite lightly, and that's not fair. All of my life, ever since you disappeared, the thought of you has hurt. And I would give anything I possess just to know that you were happy again.
Happiness.
Why shouldn't you still have it?
I see. She couldn't help telling you about Alan Trent. Lady John couldn't.
You are one of the people that life has not taken away from, but given more to. Now, more than ever, you are still... You haven't lost your beauty.
The god saw it was so little effectual, it wasn't worth taking away. One woman's mishap. What is that? A thing as trivial to the great world as it's sordid in most eyes. And yet, the time has come when a woman may look about herself and say, what general significance has my secret pain? Does it join on to anything? And I find that it does. I'm no longer merely a woman who has stumbled on the way. I'm one who has got up, bruised and bleeding, and wiped the dirt from her hands and the tears from her face and said to herself not merely, here's one luckless woman, but here is a stone of stumbling to many. Let's see if it can't be moved out of other women's way. And she calls people to come and help. No mortal man, let alone a woman on her own, can move that rock of offense. But if many help Jeffrey, the thing can be done.
Lord, how you care.
Don't be so sad. Shall I tell you a secret? Jean's ardent dreams needn't frighten you. If she has a child. That. From the beginning, it was not the strong arms, but the weakest. The little arms that subdued the fiercest of us. You will have other children, Jeffrey. For me, there was to be only one. Well, since the men have tried and failed to make the world a decent place for the children to live in, it's just as well some of us are childless. Yes. We are the ones who have no excuse for standing aloof from the fight.
Vita! You've forgotten something.
What?
This.
Then we can beat a path where there was none before, and let the blood of the ancients flow.